Hey guys, this is Aleksey from Ace5 Education doing a low poly tree and GI baking tutorial in Cinema 4D for cgtootsplus.net. Yeah, this is what we're going to be making. We're going to make this tree. I'm going to show you how to model it. I'm going to show you how to make it look like this little paper foldy thingy that, a lot of um, studios are doing now. It seems to be popular and it looks nice, I think. I like some pastel colors. It's not too it's like a bit less 3D-ish than usual, not as smooth. So yeah, and I'm going to show you how to model it, how to make it look this way, and then how to bake some GI into it. So when you render, you don't have any huge render times. And I'll explain to you when you should use GI and when you shouldn't. So let's get into it. So let's start with a cube because cubes are great to start with. Make this guy editable. Go to points. Select your rectangular selection tool. Let's get these points at the bottom. Let's move them to 0. That way, actually, let's move them even a bit up. Move it up 3. You'll notice that's useful because here, see how there's like this little dark edge? It's, in real life, things never meet flush with each other. There's always like some kind of padding underneath them, or they're just uneven, so there's always like a little kind of edge thing going on. So yeah, that's why I moved it up a bit. So when there's a floor object under it, there's going to be, well, you can't see it here, but you'll see that there's a bit of an edge. So let's go cube, name this tree trunk. Let's go into faces, live selection, select this thing. Let's go into our 4 view mode, and let's go. It depends what version of Cinema 4D you're in. You can either hold in the newer ones. I think it's only R14, maybe R13. You can hold the control key and drag, and you basically do an extrude because you're copying the face. If you don't have R14, or if it's not an R13, you can press the D key, which is the extrude tool, or right click and extrude there. And same thing, you press it and you just click and drag in an empty space, and you extrude the rest of it. So, let's move this guy around. If you notice me switching between the move, rotate, and scale tools, I have keyboard everyone has keyboard shortcuts, but I'm using keyboard shortcuts to do that. In my case, you just hold your mouse over and you'll see what the shortcut is for the tool. If there's no tooltip appearing, you can see it here at the bottom here. This is a status thingy. So when you roll over, it says live selection 9, shortcut W, and so on and so forth. So yeah, let's move this guy. We're making a tree here, the tree trunk. So let's scale him down, and let's move him out here. And let's go to the knife tool, which is K. Right click here, knife, and here I haven't set the default to loop. That's what we need to switch it to. You probably have line by default, so let's switch it to loop. Untick restrictions and stuff, and let's add a cut like here, and then go to point mode and move it across. Scale it down a bit. Scale this down as well. Go back to the knife tool, the K tool, right click, knife. Let's add some cuts here, so now we can select this face. Oops. Now we can select face. Once again, control drag with the move tool, scale it down or extrude, depending on what version you're in. Let's go back to point mode, let's move this out a bit. Scale this guy down, scale these guys out a bit. We're going to get a nice tree shape. Go back to the knife tool. Let's go here once again, knife. Let's add some cuts here. Once again, if you notice me switching to the rectangular selection tool quickly, like if you have a mouse with buttons on the side, in Firefox and Chrome, you use them to go back and forward through pages. In Cinema 4D, those buttons give you a V menu, and the other one gives you, if you hold and drag with your forward button, it's like temporarily switches to rectangular selection. It's very convenient. So if you're using a tool like the knife tool and you want to just go rectangular selection, you can do that, and you can move it across, scale it down a bit, then go to the knife tool again, with the K tool, scale rectangular selection, move, and that's how you do it. There it is, tree. I like the shape. Awesome. We have our tree trunk now, so we're going back to model tool. Let's add some spheres for the leaf 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 area. Let's move it up and change here our segments all the way down to like 7. Now you can leave it with this shape, but I don't like this whole pointy thing at the top, so I'm going to change it to this, not tetrahedron, hexahedron. That's showing the way I prefer my low poly spheres to look. So let's move it here, big sphere, control click, once again you drag, you can copy it, or you go control C, control V, you know, depending what version of cinema you're in. Let's go add another one, scale it down, and once again, while you're in the move tool, you can just control click and drag. You know, if you click on these things are called axis bands. If you can't see them, press Shift V and go HUD and oops, HUD, and here you will find you should find axis, maybe view. No, sorry, it's small. These axis bands are axis type, scale, filter. There you go. Axis bands. Here they are. Big. If you untick them, they disappear. Basically, axis bands just let you drag around stuff in one plane, so only the Y and the X direction, or only the Y and the Z direction, so on and so forth. So yeah, let's put them down a bit. Give another one. Well, it's up to your artistic choice on how you want this stuff to look. There you go. I like it. Free. Move that out of it. Maybe another little one here. Going down. Stick them here in the corner. There you go. Sweet. So we got our model of the tree. Looks wonderful, right? Now, however, we see that the spheres seem to be still smooth when you look at them front on. You can see the edges on the sides here, but for some reason, front on, still smooth. That's because we've got this thing called a Phong tag. Phong tags, they basically add like, you know, a fake smoothing onto things that are front on, and you can change the angle at which it's smooth, so it smooths everything that's, you know, over a certain angle. So if you go down, you'll see on this little sphere here, it's like this one. If you go down, you see at some point, there you go. See how they just stopped being smooth? So that's what the Phong tag does. It adds smoothness to edges. We don't need that smoothness, so we just go and delete all of these Phong tags, and from this thing as well, from the trunk. And there you go, and you have this little nice thing. And right now they look all kind of uniform, so we go to this rotation tool. And once again, R14, you don't have to have anything selected, you just click and drag, and it'll temporarily rotate the object that was under your mouse. Otherwise, in older versions, you have to select each one separately, and then you can rotate. So, there we go. We added a bit of randomness. There you go. That's our wonderful tree, modeled and everything. So, let's make this plane here, scale it up a bit. Now, let's add some materials. You double click and you in the material panel and you create a material. If mine by default is just color, and that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to have an specular and a reflection. If you want us to know how to make default materials, check out my materials 101 tutorial. It covers how to change your default presets. Otherwise, just untick your other channels and just leave color, and then change it to, you know, brown for the tree trunk. Once again, here if you don't have HSV, put this little thing and switch it to HSV. Much easier to pick colors that way. And now we can just click and drag it onto the tree trunk. Control copy it a couple of times. Make this one green. Make this one also green. Control click it again to make another one which is a bit darker green, maybe more saturated dark green. I don't know, just make a couple of them. And now just drag and drop them onto the material, onto the spheres. Let's make another one. So drag and pull that here. Nothing on. I want to be darker. And let's apply. Well, let's do this onto that one, and this one. There you go. Looks nicer. Close enough for now. You know, it's all about your artistic preferences. And also, if there's too good idea, probably delete the useless tags. So it just keeps everything nice, nice and clean. So, next step, we need to do the lighting. As I said, I'm going to be using GI, which is something I really don't do because in animation it's generally, it takes too long to render, there's flickering, it's just not practical in a production pipeline. But I'm going to show you how to bake it, and that makes it very productive and useful. So, infinite light. Now, once again, my default light is not what your default light is probably like. By default, I have fall off turned on. I'm going to turn that off. And I have shadow set to soft, and I want mine to be hard. Let's make the sunlight. Now let's go rotate it, you know, from the top, down, and if you hit render, that's pretty much what we're looking for. But look what happened. We hit render, the spheres suddenly went all circular again. That's because here we have this wonderful little tick called render perfect. We just untick, we select all of them by clicking on the top one, holding the shift key, selecting the bottom one, it selects everything in between the two, and we go untick, render perfect. And now when we render, we have our blocky spheres. So, obvious problem, not very good lighting. So let's go make a white material, drag it onto the floor. Let's make a sky object. Let's make another material, drag it onto the sky. The sky material, double click on it. Let's go to texture, change that to gradient. And here we can change the gradient to a vertical gradient. And we can invert these knots. And we can change the black, just this little arrow thingy, to a nice blue. Maybe it was green, a bit more blue. And that way the sky will grade from white to blue. Now, if we hit render, firstly, we still see the connection here, and secondly, we do not turn global illumination on. So, Control B, Effects, Global Illumination. I like to go to QMC still image. They change these settings with every version. Honestly, since we're not actually doing animation, I mean, we are going to use it. We can use this for animation, we're just going to bake it. So this works perfectly for the most part. Maybe change the diffuse depth to 2 if you don't like it. But otherwise, close enough. And now we hit render. And as you can see, we have our tree. Now, right now we have a problem. We have a rough edge here, which is not good. So let's get our material here, our gradient, and let's move this white halfway up. That way, the white gradient starts halfway. Like the sky is like a big sphere which encloses the whole, like the sky object is like a big sphere which encloses the whole scene. So if you want the white to start in the middle at the horizon, which you can see here, this horizon line, move the white up halfway and then hit render. And ta-da, you have no edge, it just goes from white to blue. Now let's change here, I want to make the skylight a bit more yellow. Just maybe like 10%, 12% yellow, just so it adds a bit of warmth to the scene. There we go. It's subtle, but it's an important effect. So, let's also move this. Remember these points that we had at the bottom? Let's move them up a bit. Oh, they've somehow magically moved back down. So let's move them up a couple of points. Press enter. Now if we hit render, see we get this nice little edge, maybe even a bit more. No, but don't forget to press enter after you move them up here. There you go. Now we have a nice little edge. Maybe a bit too much. Let's move it back to 6. If you notice how I move these, you just roll over and you use a scroll wheel, and you can move the values up and down. So render again. And there you have it. Wonderful. Okay. Now, as you notice, right now it renders quite quickly. That's because nothing else in the scene. It's just a tree. But it still takes, 2 seconds. So if you're rendering like 100 frames, that's 200 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to bake this. By baking is we're going to get all the lighting, the information that we have in the scene right now, and we're going to stick it into the object so that the lighting no longer affects it. So let's do this. We select all these objects. We go here, we press object, and we go bake object. Now, I like to change the texture to 1024 because 512 is way too small. And let's take single texture, illuminate, and replace objects. And let's stick it into a folder wherever. Mine is in work, CG2 to make a tree, text folder. Okay. And now we press bake. As you see, it calculates, it sticks all this stuff. Now, the only problem here is that this plane takes up a lot of room and it really doesn't need to be that big. So, what we're going to do is we're going to undo this. Make this plane, and we're going to scale it down. And we're going to stretch it out to where the shadow is. So when we render, it still blends in. So you still can't see it. But now, when we select all these objects, holding the Shift key, and we go Objects, Bake Object, we go Bake. You will see these actually take up a lot more space, and that plane takes up less space. Once again, you can do this in separate textures, like if you want to take single texture, it'll be a separate file, and you won't have this issue at all. But I want to keep it in one image because it's just easier to manage at the moment. As you can see now, there's like lighting information on it. You have these weird lines, but that's just because in your material here, your editor display is set to default. If you change that to 1024, there you go. You have the tree, and you can turn the slide off, and you can go to your settings, turn off Global Illumination, and not only do you now see filter grid. So you pretty much have the final render in your viewport. But when you hit render, renders it in no time at all. It's like 0 because it doesn't need to calculate any lights or shadows or anything. So this is really useful if you have like a scene which takes a long time to calculate, because you do this once and then you're free to go. Your animation will render in like a fraction of the time. However, there's something you have to keep in mind. Firstly, the sun thing no longer actually does anything. You can rotate it. It doesn't matter. The shadow won't move. And that's the other thing. If you copy this tree, like right now, we can group this thing, and we can control and we can clone it, and we can move it here, and we can scale this tree up. Let's actually undo this. Let's throw all of these under the tree trunk. Now we can move this around, and we can scale it up. And we can move it here, and we can move another. We can move another one, and we can put it here. We can scale it down, and at the moment it looks fine. You can hit render. But if you decide, for example, to get this tree and rotate it, or this one, you will see this rather odd behavior is that the shadow will also rotate. So you have to keep that in mind, because by baking something, you're getting all the texture, all the lighting, all the image information onto that geometry, like you're projecting it onto it. So it moves with it. So that also means that you can't, for example, move this tree without this plane. Because if you just select the tree, so we're playing out of this hierarchy. If you just select the tree and you move it, you can see the shadow doesn't move with the shadow, like it's like an image. It's like been painted onto the plane. So keep that in mind when you're baking stuff. Like you can't bake a character animation. You can't bake stuff that's animated. Like if I, for example, get this tree trunk and I group it with a bender form, right? Tree trunk and group it. Scale this bender form. I can animate the tree moving, and the light on the tree generally stays okay. Like, it doesn't really disrupt it too much. But as you notice, the shadow doesn't move with it, so it's kind of unrealistic. So this is some stuff you have to keep in mind when baking Global Illumination. Personally, I prefer if I use this method, I will bake the global illumination into the objects that are like the background, like here the trees. If I have like a little forest, maybe I'll make like 4 different trees with different shapes and different rotations, and then I'll bake them out and I'll stick them into a cloner and they'll be like a forest. And then the characters that run around it or whatever moves in it, that stuff will be lit with normal lights, and it won't be GI. It'll just be like a fake GI, and that way you still get fast render times, and it still looks like GI because, well, that's how it was calculated. Keep in mind, it doesn't work with a physical renderer. If you switch to physical, you can't bake anything. We can't bake its GI. You can only bake its just the lighting. So yeah, this is our tutorial. And look, in the viewport, it looks great. That's what I love about baking stuff, is that it just looks really nice when you're in the viewport. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I covered the important bits. Once again, these materials are all irrelevant now. Not all of them, but the tree materials, you don't need them. Everything has one texture. And you can open this texture up. Like now you can get this material here, and it's JPEG. You can open it in Photoshop or anything. Like you can see it here. There it is. This is the last one that we made here. And you can draw on it. You can do whatever you want. Like you can stick your logo onto it this way. It's a very convenient and time-saving approach. But you got to plan your stuff. Like you can't just it's got to once you do this, it's pretty much stuck. Or you have to go back and bake everything out again. Yeah, so yeah. I hope you enjoyed it. You learned something useful. I'll check back on CG Tuts and check out Ace 5 Education. And yeah, ask any questions in the comments. I'll happily reply to them. Cheers, people.